Hi, I'm Mike Canavan with Icarus Tours, and this is how to play Ticket to Ride. In Ticket to Ride, you're trying to have the most number of points by the end of the game. The game will end when any player has two or less of their little trains left. When that happens, every player, including that one, will get to take one more action. Now, in order to score points, you do it in two ways. One way is when you claim a route. I'll go over how you claim a route a little later, but when you claim a route, you'll score points based on its length. So you count how many trains you just played out and check this little chart. So this 4-length route would be worth 7 points, and I'd score those 7 points immediately. The second way you score points is by completing your destination tickets, which you start with a little hand of. So in this example, I'm trying to complete the Los Angeles to Atlanta route. It shows you the two city names and how many points it's worth, and a little map of kind of where those locations are. So in this case, you can see I've connected by claiming routes from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and this would be worth 15 points at the end of the game. Because you don't reveal your destination tickets until the end of the game. That's also important because if you don't complete a route, like say this one from Winnipeg to Omaha, you lose points based on it at the end of the game. So when you complete a route, you just keep it in your hand and you wait till the end when you'll add up all the routes that you've scored and subtract the ones that you haven't completed. So those are the two ways that you can score points. When you're playing the game, you're just going to go around the table and everybody's going to take a turn. And on your turn, you can take one action and you have 3 actions to choose from. Now you're going to start the game with a little hand of 4 train tickets. And one of the actions you can choose is to take more train tickets. You get to take 2 more. You can pick them from the face-up pile or from the draw pile. If you take one from the face-up pile, you get to see what the next one is before you take your second one. You can take them in any combination of from the face-up or from the draw pile. The only different rule for that is if you draw a locomotive. So locomotives are the wilds. They can be used as any color. If you take one of them, it can be the only card you take if you take it from the face-up. So if I wanted this locomotive, that would be the only card I'd be able to take. Now that doesn't apply if I draw it from the top of the deck. I can still take a second card if I draw it from the top of the deck. So one of the actions you can take is to take 2 more train cards. Just one special rule, if there are ever 3 locomotives face up, they are immediately discarded and you deal 5 new face-up cards. So that's one action. A second action that you could take is to claim a route. So like I did before, if I wanted to claim El Paso to Dallas, it's got 4 little red boxes where my trains will go. So I would discard 4 red cards, or I can use locomotives as red cards well. So in this example, I'm going to discard 3 red cards and a locomotive. Take my 4 trains out and claim this route and score points based on the chart, which was the 7 points I scored earlier. So if I just score 7 points, there we go. So the second action is to claim a route. The special rules around that is that some routes, there's 2 options. So here between Denver and Kansas City, there's a black one and an orange one. In a 2 and 3 player game, only one of those routes can be used. You get to pick which color you want to use. In a 4 and 5 player game, both routes can be used, but once someone has taken the orange route, then the next player would have to take the black route in order to complete it. The third action you can take is to draw destination tickets. When you draw destination tickets, you draw 3, and you have to keep at least 1, but you can keep any number beyond that. So in this situation, I might keep Seattle to Las Vegas because I'm already going to be over here, and I would discard the other 2 because maybe they didn't fit my strategy. But if I wanted to keep them, I could. So on your turn, you get to take 1 action, and those are, you can, 1, take 2 train cards, either from the face up or the face down, or you can take action 2, which would be to claim a route and score a few points, which helps you connect the cities of your destination. Or action 3, you can take more destination tickets into your hand. You have to keep at least 1, but you can keep any number of them after that. So that's how the game flows and how you take the actions, and you keep doing that until one person has 2 or less trains, then everyone gets one more action, then the game's over. You add up your destination tickets that you've completed, subtract any that you may not have completed, and then you add that to wherever your score is based on the points you got when you put the trains out. That is how you play Ticket to Ride. In terms of strategy for Ticket to Ride, I recommend that most players use their first few starting destinations to create a loose plan. So in the example earlier, I needed to connect Los Angeles to Atlanta and Seattle to New York. I might have chosen to connect Seattle to Los Angeles and New York to Atlanta, and then find the best way to connect them a little later on in the game once some of the routes have started to be taken. The other recommendation would be to get a few routes worth of train cards in your hand before you start playing them out. That ensures that you can claim some of the important routes rather quickly before the other players can figure out where you're trying to go, so that they don't take the routes that you need. And so if they take a route that you did end up needing, you can reroute and make a different plan to connect your different cities. That's kind of a basic strategy if this is your first time playing. Now, there are lots of different versions of Ticket to Ride, and they differ in a few ways. The rules I went over with are the core rules that virtually every version of Ticket to Ride uses, but some of them differ in how many destination tickets you start with, how many you get to draw when you take them as an action, how many you have to keep. There are a number of different rules for how locomotives work in the various sets. Some of the boards need them for things called ferries and tunnels. And then a lot of the boards have a little add-on mechanic that makes that board unique. So do check the rule book or with somebody that understands the board before you start playing one of the other boards. My take on Ticket to Ride, it's a staple of the board game community nowadays. It's got, 8, 9, 10 sets out. Some of them have multiple maps. Virtually every gamer out there who's been playing for a while has played it and understands it. So it's an easy game to get to the table. I think it's probably best known as the non-gamer spouse game, not because it's a poor game by design or that, kind of in-depth advanced gamers don't enjoy it, but because the theme is not exactly knights and wizards throwing fireballs around. It's very approachable for most people. So a lot of spouses that aren't as excited about gaming, who their other half is excited about gaming, they usually don't mind playing Ticket to Ride because it's a little bit lighter on the fare. In the same sense, it's very good for getting new people who are not used to kind of strategy board games into it, because it at first plays very similar to kind of an American classic board. There's not a lot of board games, not a lot of rules, but for those gamers, there's really a lot to the game. There's a lot going on in it, and it's a good kind of gateway game to get them into the gaming scene. For me, I played a ton with my wife. It's definitely not my favorite game, but I would say that anyone who is investing in a board game collection, Ticket to Ride is absolutely a need to have, really, because of the accessibility of it. If you've got a cousin over, or your parents, or someone who is not into gaming, but you'd like to play a game, this one is a fantastic one for that. At all the Icarus Tours events, we run a Ticket to Ride. We call it the World Tour, where every night we get out a new map, and we keep everybody's score throughout the convention. Whenever you play a Ticket to Ride map, you give me the scores at the end, and then I keep track of those, and I have a super secret formula that I determine who the winner is. Then we usually give out the most recent expansion. It's very, very popular at the events. Usually is pretty darn bloodthirsty. The groups that I play with when we play Ticket to Ride is a fairly friendly game. We're not trying to claim routes over each other, but it gets a little vicious at Icarus Tours events, Teton Con notably. So that's kind of how Ticket to Ride fits in with the Icarus Tours events.